And welcome back, fellow football fanatics. This is College Football with Sam, as usual, live on Mondays, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And today, we will be discussing my post-spring ACC Football Power Rankings. Stay tuned for my next live show, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, where, on top of answering some questions that you guys have, I will be talking about my Big 12 power rankings. At least they will be out by Wednesday. I might do it in a separate video because doing your questions that you ask me on the Discord server on top of power rankings might be too much. But sometime within the next 48 hours, my Big 12 power rankings will be out. They're just not quite ready yet. I do my own editing. I don't have a team. One day, I hope and pray that I will have a team. Part of me is inclined to think that I will have a team. But College Football with Sam right now is a two-man operation. It's me and a graphic designer. That's it. Now, my graphic designer does wonderful work. He's inspired not just the cover arts I use for all of my videos, and he makes most of them. He made the template, so the reason why I've changed the color scheme and made updates is because of him. He's absolutely wonderful. His email, if any of you need graphic design services, by the way, is linked in the description. It's just something him and I made a deal on that if he's going to help me, the least I can do is link his email down in the description. Absolutely love him. So shout out to you, Brycen. Thank you for helping me do all the work that I can do. You make my life easier. You help me to produce more content, and it's wonderful. Anyway, point being that I still have to edit the stuff in the video because, yeah, I only have one person and he has his own work. So probably I'm already saying too much, but the point is they're not ready yet. And the Big 12 is the most chaotic conference, so I think it fits. So we're going to talk about the ACC power rankings where I have all the ACC programs, including Notre Dame, and I'm including Notre Dame in my ACC power rankings just for a tidbit. And then we'll be talking about what I think the long-term expectations should be with Nebraska. Nebraska's a blue blood program, but they've also been down, as all of you know, rather recently. I'll be discussing Michigan State hiring J Batt. Jason Batt goes by the name J Batt as their new athletic director and why that's a big move. And I'll also be discussing something else that you'll see as you watch this live show. But before we begin, please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, share this live show around so that hopefully we can get a lot of concurrent viewers here. I want to turn this live show into something consistent and make it be fun. I mean, that's what college football is all about, is fun. And as for these glasses, a little bit of a personal fact, I have pretty good vision. I think 2020, used to have 2020. I think I'm still pretty close to it. Maybe I should get it checked out. These glasses are just for blue light sensitivity because I sit at a desk, work on a computer all day. It's not healthy for my eyes. So I'm wearing this because I'm going to be looking at my screen to read off a bunch of notes and other things, including where I have the ACC teams and a lot of players on those teams that I like. And I've already been staring at the screen for hours today, so my eyes do not need to be more strained. But without further ado, let's get right into it and talk about my post-spring ACC power rankings. Who do you think will be the best team in the Atlantic Coast Conference for the 2025 season? Make sure to tell me in the comment section below, because what I'm going to do today is show you where I would have every ACC team plus Notre Dame ranked from 1 to 18. We'll start at 18th, we'll start at the bottom, and then we'll work our way to the top. And the teams who I think will be the best this season in my power rankings, not ratings, want to clarify that, will be ranked towards the end of the video. We'll talk about them last. We saved the best for last here on College Football with Sam. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Just do all of those things for me. They're free. That way you get quality analysis showing up in your feed. Hitting the notification bell helps you to get notified when we release new content, and liking the video and watching all the way through boosts our presence in the algorithm. If you do want to support the channel in any other way, I invite you to look at the Patreon and merchandise store links in the video description. And you can also join our Discord server, where I would love to have more ACC fans join that via the link in the description. Again, totally free. None of that costs anything except for the merchandise store and Patreon page, and those are totally optional. Totally. Your support and doing the free things already means a lot to me. But let's kick it off with talking about Stanford. I think Stanford is going to be the worst team in the ACC. Troy Taylor was fired for abuses that took place directly from him at Stanford. That's why he was fired. They finished 3-9 last year, 2-6. They finished ahead of Florida State, who was 17th, but Florida State has the talent and some incoming transfer players to where I don't think they're going to be the worst team in the ACC. I think that will be the once tall and proud Stanford Cardinals. Stanford, when I look at my ACC teams, my all ACC players, I only have Stanford with 3 up there. They had a guy in David Bailey leave, Emmett Mosley left, and there are many other Stanford players who exited after Troy Taylor was fired. I have 4 all-ACC players who are Stanford Cardinals if I look at my 5th and 6th all-ACC teams. My ACC teams, all-conference teams, all-American teams are almost exponentially larger than most because I just think there are so many good players that go unrecognized because of the size of the conferences and the size of the teams. Conferences are now huge, and the teams have traditionally been small. So just a little bit of a tidbit there. But Stanford's not deep. They don't have much talent. They have an interim coach in Frank Reich, who I don't think did anything major in the portal, and is probably just using this to, well, pass some time while he's unemployed. More of an NFL guy, Frank Reich is. At 17th, we have California. They finished 6-7 last year, 2-6 in the ACC, where they were 14th. They lost in the LA Bowl to UNLV, and it wasn't super competitive. That's after Fernando Mendoza left. Jaden Ott is gone. Jonathan Brady is gone. Javion Thomas is gone. They lost so many players, particularly on offense in the portal. At one point, they had, I think, 8 or 9 all-ACC players, and they were in the teens when you factored in the 5th and 6th teams, which I classify, along with the other ACC teams, as all-ACC depth. They only have 3 ACC players now, the same as Stanford, and 7 when you include the honorable mention teams, 5th and 6th. I like what they have at quarterback in Devin Brown. That's pretty much it. And then they have a few nice defensive players like Aiden Kunia. I hope that's how you say his name, or maybe it's Kianiana. Hard to pronounce his name, but hopefully I pronounced it right. Hunter Barth at linebacker, and then Harrison Taggart transferred in from BYU. And then they have some other nice players on defense, and Jacob DeJesus at wide receiver and return specialist. But I don't like California and where they're at. I think Justin Wilcox has been really taking advantage of the low expectations there, and I don't think he's going to survive this year. Straight up, I don't. Their roster has been pillaged. I don't know how they're going to get even 6 wins this year unless they earn several close wins. But they're certainly going to have a negative point total. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. We have Virginia Tech at 16th in my ACC power rankings. They finished 6-7, 4-4. They were 8th in the ACC. I was very high on Virginia Tech, very high on rank 2024, but they had a disappointing year. Almost beat Miami, but couldn't. Led Clemson at one point, couldn't close out against them. Lost the Duke's Mayo Bowl to Minnesota. Brent Pry was a great defensive coordinator at Penn State. I think that Penn State at the end of the day won that trade where they got Manny Diaz, and then they got Tom Allen for a year and then got Jim Knowles. And in exchange, Pry, well, went off to Virginia Tech, and he hasn't had much success there. They returned Kyron Drones, but look, all the players they return are players with a lot of questions. They lost Mansour Delane. They lost Brycen Moore. They lost many other players to the portal. I think both of those players actually went to LSU. Yes, they did. So they got pillaged and destroyed in the portal, and they also, to a certain degree, did on the field. They have a good kicker in John Love, And overall, they have 2 All-ACC players and only 6 when you count the 5th and 6th teams, the honorable mention. Kevin Gilliam Jr. should be a good defensive tackle. I mean, I can't believe it. They had such, in my mind, an underrated portal class entering 24. It looked like they could be a good team. Lost opening week to Vandy and just could never pick themselves up off the mat. So I do not like where, again, much like Stanford, this once proud program that was at the top of college football, they're now towards the bottom rung, and it doesn't look like it's going to get better for them, unfortunately. We have Wake Forest at 15th. I myself was shocked that Wake Forest was this high. I thought they would be lower with Clawson leaving and the coaching change, but I think Jake Dickert right now is the best coach we've talked about so far. Better than Frank Reich. I think he's better than Justin Wilcox, better than Brent Pry. Had some success at Washington State. Finished 4-8 last year. Wake Forest under Dave Clawson, who retired. Dickert comes in with Scotty Hazelton as this defensive coordinator who, with me being more of a Big Ten guy, I live in Michigan. He's a meme in my head and in many other circles, but he should fare better, I think, in the ACC. And they have some nice talent on defense. Quincy Bryant is a great linebacker. Have him on the second team. 5th best overall linebacker there in the ACC. BJ Williams is a good defensive end. And they overall, the Demon Deacons, they have 6 All-ACC players and an additional one if you want to include the honorable mention teams. DeMond Claiborne, great returner for them. And then you also have he's at running back. Almost thought he was a wide receiver for some reason. Wake Forest, there's a lot of unknown with them, the Demon Deacons, but maybe they could have some success this year. It's been hard to win at Wake Forest, but Dave Clawson did it. Jim Grobe did it. Jake Dickert was able to develop Cam Ward and develop John Mateer. And the reason he left Wake Forest in part is left Washington State, my apologies. I got that confused in my mind because both Wake Forest and Washington State are not going to be safe from their players being poached by the SEC or even the Big Ten, or even fellow bigger ACC programs like a Miami or maybe even a Clemson. I think Clemson has deeper pockets than many would believe. But Wake Forest still has infinitely more resources than Washington State because Wake Forest plays in a power conference. And Washington State right now is basically lucky that they even exist at the FBS level due to the unfortunate untwisting of conference realignment. So a little bit more time than maybe you would have expected when it comes to me talking about Wake Forest, but it's an interesting story. Why Dickert left Wazoo, what they bring in, what they bring back. They'll be a fascinating team this year. At 14th, we have Boston College. Speaking of another coach who I think is underrated in Bill O'Brien, they went 7-6 and 4-4 in the ACC last year. Had a hot start, played competitively with Missouri, who won 10 games, beat Michigan State. This is a team that I think has talent and is solid in the trenches and will be able to run the ball, and they'll be fundamentally sound. I know they lost Thomas Castellanos. He was benched at some point last season. They do lose a lot of NFL-level offensive and defensive linemen. They do, and that was a strength of theirs last season. I still think that they have in Davion Crouch, good linebacker, Carter Davis and KP Price are great safeties, and they have 6 All-ACC players, 10 if you look at the 5th and 6th teamers, the honorable mentions. This is an okay ACC roster. They could go bowling yet again, but I have them at 14th because I do think they have some talent limitations and certainly a loss of production when you look at the offensive line, running back, the defensive line. The trenches are going to be tested. Same with quarterback, same with receiver. They had a lot of underrated players last year that they lose. I'm curious how Bill O'Brien replaces them. At 13th, we have Virginia. I was a little bit shocked to have Virginia this high, but the more I've looked into Virginia this year, the more pleasantly surprised I've been. They went 5-7 last year, 3-5. They didn't reach the postseason again under Tony Elliott, and I think that this is the year for them. I have them with 8 All-ACC players, 9, so an additional one if you include the honorable mention teams. Brady Wilson, pay attention to him at center. Noah, I forget if it's Josie or Jose, at guard, just with how it's spelled. It's spelled with a Y after the typical Jose. And then Monroe Mills, Mikhail Boley should be great tackles. I mean, this offensive line will be underrated in the ACC. Isaiah Augustave, maybe. He committed to Virginia, decommitted. I'm curious to see what the running back situation is there. I know that they got Mitchell Melton at D end, who I think will be a fantastic player in the ACC. I think that players at Ohio State or high-level SEC teams or just overall high-level teams, I think that going down to a team like Virginia or lower-level ACC or Big 12 or just any lower-level team can really help them grow and really make a name for themselves. So I have Virginia power ranked at 13th in the ACC. All right, up next we have Syracuse, but before that I have to quickly answer a phone call here, or at least text someone. So to those watching, whether live or not live, I apologize. This is actually, said it earlier in the show, this is me texting back my graphic designer. Okay. Sent him a text, and my apologies yet again, but I don't think that's that much of an interruption. It's actually a nice break, I would say, to collect all your thoughts on the rest of the ACC that we've talked about. Syracuse at 12th. I love Fran Brown. I love where he has the program. But they overachieved last year. They hit on their portal additions, and after losing Kyle McCord, Trevor Pena, a lot of good players on defense, they lost John Ray Reed to USC, who is tapping him to be their starting center. I think they're going to take a step back. Now, I still think they'll find a way to go bowling. I think that Fran Brown's a good coach, but at the end of the day, Steve Angeli, while I think good, is a downgrade from Kyle McCord. They lose LaQuint Allen. I don't know who they have at running back. Mark Petrie will be, I think, a good center, but not quite as good as Reed. Miller should be a good guard. They have Jonte Cook II from Syracuse coming in, and also Darrell Gill Jr. coming back. But their receiver core, while, again, good, is probably still going to be a downgrade. I have them with 5 All-ACC players, 11, so an additional 6 on the 5th and 6th teams, counting the 2-deep, or not the 2-deep, but the honorable mentions. I'll explain my ACC and Big Ten and SEC teams and all that stuff in a different video because we produce daily content here on College Football with Sam. However, I think Syracuse, while taking a step back, is going to be overall a good ACC team this year. Pay attention to Fran Brown in the long term. If Syracuse can somehow keep him, I love their chances, their prospects at being one of the top third, top half for sure ACC teams every year. We have NC State at 11th. What do you think about NC State right now? I took a pause because I don't know what to think about them. You know, they have had Dave Doran there forever, and Doran seemingly just can't get through that glass ceiling of 10 wins. He's reached 9. He's been ranked even at the top 10 in the top 10 at points. I remember in 2022 when they had that top 10 matchup against Clemson. Man, it was a good game, but it was an overrated game. Not everyone knew it at the time, but NC State was not top 10, and Clemson was certainly not top 5. I don't even know if they were top 10 that year. I'd almost be inclined to say they weren't, given some of the losses they had and some of the close wins. However, looking at NC State, they lost Tony Gibson. They went 6-7, 3-5. Their portal QB, Grayson McCall, did not pan out. He retired in the middle of the season. I wonder what they're going to do. How are they going to respond? How? That's a big question for a program that has had a coach for a while, has had consistency, continuity, and yet their future's uncertain. And they've disappointed for, I would say, to a certain degree, a few consistent years in a row now, quite honestly. 2022 is a little bit of a disappointment. I think they bounced back a little in 2023, but then this year they majorly disappointed. I mean, they got destroyed by Tennessee, destroyed by Clemson, and those are teams that were great, but in no way elite. And to look that lifeless at times, and the QB debacle was just concerning. I have them with 9 All-ACC players and an additional 4 for 13 if you count the honorable mention. So I think this is the best roster that we've talked about so far, but this is far from a team who's guaranteed to win more than 6 games. Up next, we have North Carolina at 10th. The Tar Heels, they finished also 6-7 last year, 3-5 overall. They were 12th in the ACC, and they got humiliated in the Fenway Bowl by UConn. What can Bill Belichick do? And more importantly than what can Bill Belichick do, how talented in reality is his roster? That's a big question. Bill Belichick is someone that I see as obviously, I think, more of an NFL head coach than not. Someone who has seemingly never wanted to coach in college and then all of a sudden is coaching in college. And I just don't know. I don't exactly know if it's going to work. I am inclined to say that with the roster he has, in my mind, 9 All-ACC players, an additional 5 for 14 if you count the 5th and 6th team, with Gio Lopez at quarterback, who I think is underrated. I think Daniel King, Austin Blaski, Trayvon Green make up an underrated offensive line. Kobe Paysor comes back at wide receiver. And then on defense, I love the addition of Smith Vilbert at defensive end. They did lose Bo Atkinson, but I think Vilbert was close, or at least is going to be close to what Bo Atkinson was. They got Mekhi Bayer, Kamori House at linebacker, and then Gregory Smith, Gavin Gibson, and Will Hardy. That's a wonderful safety room on top of Thaddeus Dixon and Marcus Allen at corner. And with Belichick's son, Belichick the younger, Steve Belichick, running the defense, I do think that this will be a good team. I think they'll win around as many games as their 7.5 win total suggests. But long term, can this work? And while there is a chance that this can explode and do very well in year one, there's also a chance this could fall completely through the floor. At 9th, we have Florida State. They finished 2-10, 1-7, 17th in the ACC. They were dead last in the ACC. They went from 13-0 to 2-10. In the regular season, they had a -11. They had a negative 11 win difference from 2023 to 2024. That's crazy. So I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to keep it simple. Does this staff pan out? That's a big question. Is Mike Norvell a good coach? Is he a bad coach? Is he something in the middle? His tenure's been pretty inconsistent so far. So what does the Mike Norvell era look like at Florida State this year? Because that's going to determine whether it can last much longer than this year. I have 9 All-ACC players here, 14 once you include the honorable mention teams. I like what they are doing on the offensive line. Adrian Medley is someone who should step up at guard. Luke Pettitbon, I think, will be a great center. And I love Deuce Robinson at Florida State at wide receiver. So I think they're upgrading across the board in terms of talent. And I think this portal class is going to be better than last year's. But I also thought that last year's portal class was going to be good. And while I think they have good D tackles, I think James Williams, Nebraska transfer, will do well. Darrell Jackson Jr. returns. They do have some holes, and I wonder what Tony White can do on defense and what Gus Malzahn can do on offense. Can they run what they want to run? That's something that's very interesting, especially given how Florida State does not have the talent you would expect Florida State to have from a recruiting standpoint. I would also say from a development standpoint, too. There's a lot of murky water in the lake of Florida State, if that analogy makes sense. We have Pittsburgh at 8th. Yes, Pittsburgh, power ranked ahead of Bill Belichick's North Carolina and Mike Norvell's Florida State. Now, they had a disappointing year last year. They started off 7-0, and they finished 7-6, 3-5. 10th in the ACC. SMU destroyed them. They lost to Virginia. Clemson pulled away from them. They just couldn't. Once someone finally pinned them down to the mat, they couldn't get back up. But they return Eli Holstein. They return Desmond Reed. They return what's his face? Lyndon Cooper at center. BJ Williams returns at guard for Pittsburgh. Maybe that was a... Are there two BJ Williams, or did I just not type that out properly? Anyway, they have a good offensive line. Kenny Johnson is a great receiver that comes back, and I think that Jake Overman will work out at tight end. More importantly, defensively, they return, I think, the two best linebackers in the ACC, Kyle Lewis and Rasheem Biles. I think those two are going to be that's going to be a game-wrecking duo. And then they got Rashad Battle back at corner and Cruz Brookins at safety. So they have a lot of good players, and I think they have 11 All-ACC players, 17 total, an additional 6 in the honorable mention section. Narduzzi, I think, is an okay above average, maybe even good coach. I just think Pitt has very limited resources. I don't think they care that much about football, and Narduzzi's stubborn. He's like his mentor, D'Antonio. He wants to run things his way. He did bring in offensive innovation, though, in Cade Bell. So I think Cade Bell in year 2 with Holstein is going to produce dividends. That's why I'm higher on Pittsburgh than a lot of other players who last year were better or even similar. And Pittsburgh returns more than 60% of their production, too. And from what I've seen, it's actually somewhat rare in the ACC this year. Duke is at 7th. They went 9-4 last year, won a bunch of close games. I think there's a very good chance record-wise regular season they take a step back from 9-3. But I think they upgraded at quarterback by bringing in Darian Mensah. I think that Manny Diaz at Duke is going to have better backing than what he had at Miami. And he's also, I think, learned some lessons here. They bring back Matt Craycraft at center, who's very underrated. I think guard Justin Pickett is one of the best in the ACC. Brian Parker's a great tackle. And their wide receiver room's good. I mean, they bring Quayshawn Brown back. Andrel Anthony comes in from Oklahoma, where he had some success before injuries. Samir Hagans comes back. And then on the D-line, they have Wesley Williams, Vincent Anthony Jr., Aaron Hall, Trey Freeman at linebacker. They bring back Chandler Rivers at corner, who could be the best in America. And they have Todd Polino back at kicker and Cade Reynoldson at punter, Peyton Jones as their star return specialist, but Quayshawn Brown's also good there. This is a special teams and defense type team, but with Mensah at quarterback, I wonder if they can really, maybe more so, pick it up offensively. Mensah was a good quarterback last year. I think Duke is destined to be superior in power ratings, power rankings, and superior overall as a team. The big question is, can they win the same amount of games or not? Or will the law of close games bite them in the rear like it does with most teams that win that many close games? They have 13 All-ACC players in my book, and an additional 5 to make it 18 when you include the 5th and 6th teams. We have Louisville at 6th in the ACC. They finished 9-4 last year, and they lose a lot. They only return about half of their production, just a little bit more than that, especially since all they've done in the portal kind of helps them tread above that 50%. They constantly get 20, 30, sometimes more guys in the portal. Constantly get that. They won the Sun Bowl by a point against Washington starting Damon Williams Jr. Their strength last year was the offense and Tyler Show. Their weakness was a bit of the defense. I think this team with Miller Moss coming in from USC, and what they also got at wide receiver, they stole Dakari Collins from NC State. They returned Chris Bell, Colin Lacey. I love what they have with Jordan Church at guard, and I think Pete Nigra is the best center in the ACC. Isaac Brown and Duke Watson, I think, make up one of the best running back duos in America. We'll talk about Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price in a minute. Isaac Brown and Duke Watson rival them. That is how good, in my mind, Louisville's running back duo is. D'Angelo Hutchinson and JoJo Evans should be a great duo at safety. And then you have at linebacker Stanquan Clark, I think one of the better linebackers in America and the ACC. Same with Reen Conga at D-tackle. And Clev Lubin, Wesley Bailey, that is, I think, going to be a lethal edge presence too. So they have players. I don't think Louisville's problem is going to be players in terms of the starters. I think their problem is going to be depth. It's going to be talent and the Jeff Brom experience of punching above your weight class when you face good teams, but occasionally dropping just that one, like, why did you have to lose to that team in the fashion that you did type game. I have them with 13 All-ACC players and 7 additional ones in the honorable mention to have 20 players in my All-ACC depth. So this is one of the better teams in terms of talent and depth, and I would also say potential within the ACC. Louisville could be higher when I redo these rankings in the next month or 2 months. At 5th, we have Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is going to be one of those teams in football that makes a massive jump in power rankings or ratings. I think the computer models, as the year progresses, in 2025, you will see a dramatic climb from week 1 to week 14, week 13. A dramatic climb. They earned several top 10 upsets last year over Florida State at the beginning of the year, when myself included, along with a lot of people, thought they were a top 10 caliber team. That was my worst prediction of the year last year, was picking Florida State to go back to the playoffs. Shame on me. Georgia Tech showed that that's not going to happen. And then they beat Miami. So they did a good job of preventing the Florida ACC schools from achieving what would be, by their own definitions, successful years. I think Miami had a good year, at least an acceptable year for the first time under Mario Cristobal, which is good, and we'll talk about them more later. But Georgia Tech has been this team that has tried their hardest and sometimes succeeded at spoiling better teams' seasons. This year, I don't think Georgia Tech will be the hunter for the entirety of the year. At times, I think they will be the hunted. They have a schedule that is just filled to the brim with opportunity. Clemson at home, Georgia at home. It's technically neutral site, but at least it's not in Athens. That'll make it easier. And I love Haynes King. I think Haynes King's one of the best quarterbacks in the country if you can keep him healthy. It's the same with Jamal Haynes at running back. I love what Georgia Tech has on the offensive line. I think that while they lost, what's his face? Went to Auburn. Why am I forgetting his name? Anyway, they lost him, but at the end of the day, they got Eric Rivers, are returning Malik Rutherford. I love what they have at wide receiver, and I am searching up that one player's name because it bothers me that I cannot remember. He's on my first team All-SEC, so I should be able to remember him. Eric Singleton. I don't know why I forgot Eric Singleton's name, but I did. I think that they're going to come as close to reloading as possible from letting a talent like him go. I think Eric Rivers will be a first-team All-ACC wide receiver. Dean Patterson also came in from Florida International. Malik Rutherford is good. With Akello Stone coming in from the portal, they have a great D-tackle room with Jordan Vandenberg, Akello Stone, and Matthew Alexander. And they have some guys on defense too. So pay attention to Georgia Tech. At 4th, I have SMU. SMU loses a lot, yes, but they return Kevin Jennings. And I think that his game against Penn State said more about Penn State's environment and the talent they had on defense more than anything about him. They have a okay O-line with enough talent, I think, to reload there. I love their tight end group with R.J. Maryland and Matthew Hibner, and their defense is underrated. I think this defense is going to be just as strong as last year's, and they had one of the better defenses in the ACC last year. It actually could be better than last year's defense. I think the offense is the area that will certainly take a step back, though I liked the T.J. Harden addition from UCLA. I believe in the Mustangs, firmly, and I think in terms of power rankings and team quality, where you look more at all their games combined and advanced metrics rather than just the win-loss column, I think SMU will still be one of the better teams in college football. Not one of the best. They'll be worse than last year, but I don't think they'll take as much of a step back as most people think. I have them with 12 All-ACC players, 20 in total, so an additional 8 if you look at the honorable mention teams. And by the way, for Georgia Tech, it's basically the same. 12 All-ACC players, and then an additional 9 for 21 if you look at the 5th and 6th ACC teams, at least in my book. SMU, they could go back to the playoffs. Could. I'm not picking them to just quite, I think, because of how much they lose and the fact that Rhett Lashlee does not have them. He does not have a top 25 talent roster yet. We have Notre Dame at 3rd. I debated this At the beginning of the 2025 preseason, I would have had Notre Dame higher. I would have had him first. But the more I looked into it, the more I became impressed with Clemson and Miami, who are obviously number one and obviously number two. And I became less impressed with Notre Dame, especially when they hired Chris Ash. I didn't like that. I did not like the Chris Ash hire one bit. I didn't. And on top of that, I know that they lost guys on the offensive line, and most of them were going to be backups this year. But they still lose some production. And I think with how their schedule's front-loaded, not back-loaded, that could bite them early in the year, especially in starting C.J. Carr at quarterback, who was injured last year and is coming off of that. They do return Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, who have a strong argument to be the nation's number one running back duo, though. And Malachi Fields, that's a future NFL wide receiver. I have him as a first-team All-ACC player. Jaden Greathouse is on my second team. And their linebacker room, their defensive ends, their corners, where they return Leonard Moore, could be the best corner in college football. I love what they have. And this is the first team who I think is a super talented team relative to the ACC. They have 19 All-ACC players and an additional 5 to round it up to 24 when you look at the honorable mention teams. I think Freeman right now is at least the third best head coach I have talked about. I say at least because whether it's Rhett Lashley, whether it's Brent Key, whether it's Louisville with Jeff Brom, I think there's an argument for some other coaches to be better than him, but Freeman could also be the best head coach in the ACC. He is, keep in mind, only in year 3, so we still do not know exactly who Marcus Freeman is. And he's young, so he has plenty of room to evolve, and my guess is that he's going to get better as time goes on. I love where Notre Dame is as a program. I do think they'll take a step back, though, and a sizable one compared to last year, but I love where they are, and I think long-term he'll create a consistent national title contender and maybe win it all. And I don't think a lot of people would have said that Brian Kelly even could have done that at Notre Dame. We have Miami, 10-3 last year, third in the ACC, won a bunch of close games, also lost close games. All 3 of their losses were by 1 score or less. And losing the Pop-Tarts Bowl was pretty humiliating. Looking at the Hurricanes, I believe that with 23 All-ACC players and then an additional 10 when you look at the 5th and 6th teams, I think that they have I don't know exactly how to put this. I like Clemson more than them. That's why Clemson's at 1, as all of you know. But I think that Miami has a shot to be deeper. They're not as experienced. They're not as proven. And I like Clemson more even if Miami's deeper because Clemson's alien players and star talent are at more important areas than Miami's are. And they have more aliens overall. But Miami, in terms of just plain old good, above-average bodies, I think has the best depth in the ACC. And I think that matters. And that's a testament to their recruiting, to Cristobal and his staff's recruiting, to their development, to Aaron Feld, the strength and conditioning coach, to Alex Mirabal, who's helped Miami become strong again in the trenches. I love the Corey Heatherman hire. I think Beck, while not as good as Cam Ward, who I think was college football's best quarterback last year, I think Beck is still a great QB, only have him behind Cade Klubnik and Haynes King, just ahead of Kevin Jennings and Miller Moss. I think they have the deepest running back room in the ACC, maybe only behind Notre Dame. I think it's ahead of Louisville's just based on the fact that Miami has 3 proven good running backs. Louisville only has 2. Notre Dame really only has 2, although Aeneas Williams, maybe he gets more involved this year as Carr isn't a running quarterback. And they might have the best tackle in America in Francis Mauigoa. Their wide receiver room has some questions, but I think with the additions they made in the spring window and getting Josiah Trader back, I like what they have. And then Ruben Bain I have pegged as the number 1 defensive end in the entire ACC, although that may also be TJ Parker. he moved. Originally on the depth chart, it had him placed at D tackle, though maybe that depth chart was inaccurate. Now they've moved him back to DN. So I'll have to look at him and look at TJ Parker and kind of make a decision again as to who's the best there. But overall, that's not going to change the fact that I have Miami at number 2 and Clemson at number 1. Clemson will be short and sweet. Clemson is at number 1 because they have the best quarterback in America in Cade Klubnik, because they have the most proven coaching staff in the ACC in terms of coordinators, in terms of assistant coaches. Their head coach, Dabo Swinney, right now I would not peg, boldly so, as the best coach in the ACC, because I care about really the past 4 years, maybe 5, but mostly the past 4 years. Maybe if I need a tiebreaker, it'll be the past 5, but I'm very much akin to being a recency-biased fanatic when it comes to ranking head coaches, and Swinney has only underperformed over the past 4 years. He has never come close to overperforming. So I penalize him for that. But I think that he is going to perform at about expectations, or maybe even a little bit over them this year. So that, combined with a roster full of seniors, predicted to have the most first-round NFL draft picks, and I think they have the best QB, and Garrett Riley will be in his 3rd year. So we saw the jumps they made on offense last year. I think they'll make some jumps again this year, and I think Tom Allen is a better DC than Wes Goodwin. This is Clemson's year, and I think that they're going to be the best team in the ACC, and out of all the teams in the ACC, I think it's between them and Miami as to who can have the most success in the college football playoff. Remember, just because I have Clemson at number 1 does not mean I'm picking them to win the ACC. Funky things can happen, especially with super conferences. But thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like, comment your thoughts on this down below, and I will see you all very soon. Make sure to hit the notification bell as well so you get notified when we release new content. And when we re-release these rankings soon, and maybe have some changes to them after doing some fine-tuning. Okay. We're done here. We are done here. And I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but have any of you noticed lag? Let me know before we go any further. If anyone has noticed lag. Just a question, because I've noticed it here, and I don't know if that's the case or not on your guys' end, because it could just be on my end. Sometimes if it's very brief, then people won't notice it. But let me know if I did lag, because I started to notice it, went away, and then towards the end it came all the way back. Don't like it, but it just is what it is. Let me know, guys, if there was lag, please, in the comment section below. But up next, we're going to be talking about Michigan State hiring J Batt to be their next AD. That's going to be very brief. And then it's brief because it's not quite breaking news, because it happened several hours ago and was announced yesterday by Famel. But I do want to spend 5 or so minutes talking about it and why I think this really helps Michigan State athletics and especially the football program. Then we'll talk about Nebraska, and we'll talk about something else as well. Not today, but yesterday I noticed it a little bit. Okay, interesting, because I noticed it at times yesterday, but only toward the end. If you've been watching this whole time and yet I haven't been lagging, that's pretty incredible. I closed a tab with Google Sheets, that's where my notes were off of, and the lagging has stopped. It's still frustrating to know, though, that, like, depending on the day, depending on the day, sometimes I can't have anything open. And that's why I have the second computer here, but it's confusing to use the second computer sometimes, especially with how I have it set up for now. But thank you for letting me know, Max Ellis. I appreciate it very much. And if you guys do have any questions, as usual, I will spend the final 10 minutes of a show perusing over any questions if there are super chats. If there's only a few super chats and we haven't reached 10 minutes yet, I'll also answer the free questions too. Just wanted to let you guys know. You can, though, quick plug, shameless. You can ask me questions for free. For free. You won't get an immediate answer, but if you join the Discord server, the link's in the description, just, whether it's on your phone, if it's on a TV, then my apologies, but pull out your phone, go on my live show if you're watching on the TV, and then, scroll down, click the description. You'll see a word Discord that's separated by spaces from everything else with a link. Click the link. You'll automatically join and it's free. And navigate to the hashtag YouTube mailbox channel and ask me any question, college football related. I'll put it in my Google Sheet. And from there, well, your question will eventually be made into a video, especially since it's this early. So you can ask me free questions and get an answer that way. And I think that's a nice compromise. Just wanted to let you guys know that. But let's talk now about Michigan State hiring J Batt to be their next athletic director. The Michigan State Spartans have hired J Batt to be their next athletic director. He is succeeding. My apologies. I've had stomach issues today, so let me restart that. The Michigan State Spartans are hiring J Batt to be their next athletic director. He succeeds Alan Haller, who was fired about a month ago, was let go, and he was let go only a little bit before, only a few months before his contract expired. So they wanted him out. And I think that they had good reason to want him out. NIL wasn't where it needed to be. The football program was in tatters, and I don't think that was Jonathan Smith's fault. And he was tied, whether, it's all his fault or whether it was his choice or not to give Mel Tucker that deal because Michigan State thought they had a good coach and they wanted to keep him, and many other programs wanted him. He was tied to the Mel Tucker era, and that was a disaster. So, he got let go. Of course, he's a human being, so you don't wish ill will on him, but he was not working at Michigan State. I think that J Batt is a great hire. I immediately think that he's one of the better athletic directors in the Big Ten, and potentially, though I don't know enough about athletic directors to say this, but potentially one of the better ones in America. He is an expert at finding a way to get schools revenue and to fundraise. And he's made good hires. Like, look at the Brent Key hire for Georgia Tech. And I think that's a hire that's panned out, for example, and will pan out. I'm predicting Georgia Tech to win 9-10 games this year. I think Key is a hell of a coach. When you look at the deal he made with Georgia, where every year that Georgia Tech should play a home game, they're playing in a dome. I think they're playing in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Could be wrong. And Georgia Tech gets $10 million. That's a good deal, especially I think with revenue sharing coming up, and the fact that, well, schools need all the money they can get, especially a school like Georgia Tech, which doesn't have a blue blood caliber athletic department. And then he got $500 million to renovate Bobby Dodd Stadium. Michigan State's a much better program. They're a bigger program. They're a bigger, better brand than Georgia Tech. If he could do those things, make good coaching hires, fundraise, and negotiate deals with other schools and with networks and with the college football landscape, if he could do all those things successfully at Georgia Tech, imagine what he could do at Michigan State. A few predictions that I have for Michigan State after this hire is that after this year, you will know whether or not Jonathan Smith is the head coach in the near term and in the long term. I say that because with Alan Haller being fired, Smith's buyout drops substantially. I think it's cut in half, or at least a few millions taken out. And with his fundraising abilities, if the boosters and the brass want Smith gone, he'll be gone. But also, if Smith goes bowling, or more likely than that, to really get faith and earn job security and earn respect, win 7 games or even 8 games, then he will have the war chest opened for him. I think that in the long term, Michigan State will have a good and respected NIL program, and I think that their football program is going to start trending up. I'm still very high on Smith, and I will make more content discussing why that is. But if I am wrong, and I have been wrong before, believe me, if I am wrong about that, I think that whoever succeeds him will have success instead of him, and it will just be the fact that Smith didn't pan out, or didn't have enough connections or wasn't hired at the right time. I don't exactly know. I think Smith's a heck of a coach, one of the better coaches, especially at doing more with less and punching above his weight class in the Big Ten and in America. He just got left with nothing from the Mel Tucker era. And the boosters and the brass got a little burned by that because they invested all that money in Tucker, and then Tucker turned out to be a pretty weird, bad person. Just not a good guy. Not someone you want leading young men, and a horrible coach who kept around, as Mike Valeni would say, all-time grifters at coordinators with Jay Johnson and Scotty Hazelton. So Smith, if he works out, I think is going to have a wonderful career at Michigan State now because he'll have a great AD to back him up, an AD who knows how to work with limitations and who knows how to have success despite not being at the best program in the conference he resides in. And if Smith fails, I think you have someone who's capable at making hires and giving the next guy who would replace Smith in that hypothetical scenario better resources and a better shot to succeed. Make sure, if you haven't already, to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. Also, please hit the notification bell on the Michigan State podcast that'll be linked in the description. That way you can get notified when I cover Michigan State more. And I'm trying to cover them at least a few times a month. So thank you very much, and have a great day. I say this as many of you know, but some of you may not. I say this as a Michigan fan. Go green, go white. I have always liked it when both Michigan and Michigan State are good. I want MSU to be good. I actually want MSU to be like a top 10 team every year. I think that's fun. So with J Batt being hired, there's a much better chance of that happening. And as for Tom Izzo and Michigan State basketball, I'm not as big of a fan of MSU's basketball program. They're probably now in a better position as well to have success in the tournament and on the basketball court with better resources and a more secure future. Okay, we're almost live for an hour. Already 2 topics are out of the way. And let me look at what everyone is saying. I truly believe the Spartans will rise again, is what someone says. A. Arnold, and that Smith can be the man that turns this thing around. This is the surprise topic we're going to be talking about next, is why revenue sharing will not fix the NIL crisis. We're going to spend a few minutes on this, then talk about Nebraska. But before that, I want to pause everything and get a drink of water because I don't know if it's stomach acid or what it is, but there's just something that's really bothering me and my mouth is dry. So my apologies, guys. I'll be right back. Okay, everyone, welcome back. Welcome back. All right, Husker Chuck. Okay, I'm caught up. Sweet. Nice to have you on here. All right, now we're going to talk about why revenue sharing may not fix the NIL crisis, because it is a crisis. It's something that has torn talented starting quarterbacks away from big-time programs, hinting at Nico Imaliava in Tennessee this year. A lot of people have been discussing revenue sharing and the house settlement and all those different things. I don't think the chaos with NIL is going anywhere anytime soon. I think it's here to stay. Now, I'm not a legal expert, so maybe I'm going out of my field here, just as a forewarning to all of you who are watching the video who are starting it. However, I have a few reasons off the top of my head, things that I've pondered over the past few days, weeks, really ever since the Nico Iamaleava situation with Tennessee, different things that I look at and I think there's no way this is being fixed anytime soon. That's the NIL crisis. That is the continuous jacking up of prices for these players, the constant inflation of a college football player's value. I mean, USC, this has been reported, whether it's by Juck on Bucks, and before he made a video about that, I had a friend of mine who's pretty well connected, texted me informing me of the same deal between USC and Mark Bowman, that he's getting, like $7 million or something over 3 years as a tight end. Tight end. That's crazy. Trending towards Texas and Georgia, then USC dropped that money. If they have that kind of money in NIL mobilized, that also explains why they've done a better job of holding on to an even larger and better class than the one they had last year, which completely fell apart. It helps when your off-field, on-field staff, yourself as the head coach, your AD, and the boosters are all aligned and all in lockstep. That really helps, and I think USC entering this year in juxtaposition to USC entering 2024 is a great example of that. But anyway, I do not think this is going away anytime soon. And before I tell you why, I just ask you to like the video, hit the notification bell so that you can get notified when I release daily college football content, and also subscribe to the channel. And let me know if you think that I'm out of line or wrong on any of these reasons that I am spouting off the top of my head. I think the biggest one is, how are you going to be able to limit a player's NIL? How are you going to limit their compensation for their name, consequently their brand and image and likeness, all those things? They mean a lot of similar things. In a variety of ways, they're all synonyms of each other, really. Name, image, likeness. It's basically who you are. How can you limit an athlete making a certain amount of money for just being who they are without moving to an NFL type system where they're able to just pay the best players so much money? And not just that, but with how the NFL works, there's a draft. You get drafted to a team, you have to play for that team. You get traded. You can be a free agent and go from team to team, but you got to play through your contract typically. Now, I'm not an NFL expert. I'm far from it. I know almost nothing about the NFL. So for any of those things, if I got them wrong, apologies. But the point is, the NFL, I know this about them, they have order. The NFL has order. They have rules. You can't just go from one team to another whenever you feel like it because a local business in Team A pays you a huge deal that businesses around Team B won't. And businesses can be legitimate businesses, or they can be businesses and they're fronts for a billionaire who likes a certain school. College football needs order. And that type of strict order that will be able to truly limit NIL Collective's ability to pay for players, to tamper with them, to poach them, to buy them, that will take time. That will take a lot of time. The Texases and Oregons of the world, and I'm going to make a video about this, I don't see a world where they don't have tremendous success over the next half decade to decade. Truly. Because they have the biggest budgets, and they're in the SEC and Big Ten respectively. And they have head coaches that everyone at least agrees are good. Some think they're elite. They have wonderful staffs, hard-working staffs. They're at programs that are either a blue blood in Texas or in the 21st century in Oregon have had some of the most success out of all college football teams. I don't think those teams say going into traditional SEC territory or traditional Big Ten territory, the old SEC and Big Ten teams in their territories, and poaching players that would usually go to Georgia, Alabama, Miami, although Miami hasn't really been up recently, and they're definitely a team that has generous NIL deals, but even Clemson or Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State and Oregon and Texas, and to a lesser degree Miami, and maybe Texas Tech if they have a big year this year and continue to get backing from their oil money billionaires, millionaires, they can go in and they can get some of these players that previously they would have had a harder time getting, or they'll get more of them than they usually did. I think that you are going to see these prices just continue to increase, and at some point you'll see insanity. You will see teams, or maybe just a team, spending 9 figures on their roster. And I imagine Texas or Oregon would be the first team to do that. I could totally see that in the future. With inflation, with the fact that a lot of these billionaires obviously invest their money, and the stock market's only continued to climb, they're successful, their businesses earn a lot, and Phil Knight, for example, is old, and one of the things he wants to see before he dies is Oregon win it all. These Texas oil billionaires, there's several of them it sounds like, they're going to keep making money from oil because oil runs much of the world. And with all that being said, they can funnel money to players. Why? Because there's no legal way to restrict a player from earning whatever his market value is believed to be. There's no restriction on that. You can't legally restrict that. Otherwise, the current discussions around NIL wouldn't even exist. But the NCAA can't do anything about it. It's even been ruled in the courts that tampering is legal. You can tamper with a player. You can. The only restriction that prevents players from immediately going from school A to B randomly in the middle of the year even is the current transfer portal enforcements that probably, guess what? Those probably could get challenged and defeated, given how all of this has gone so horribly wrong for the NCAA. So these are just my thoughts, and really that's it, my thoughts. This is not me reading an article. This is not me, a lawyer or legal expert, of which I am not giving you detailed inside information. I'm just making a prediction that this type of chaos is going to reign for a half decade, maybe even longer than that, half decade to a decade. I think it will take several years for there to be in fine print ironclad or close to ironclad restrictions that bring back some order to college football. NIL, in truth, was Pandora's box. It's why a lot of people didn't want players to get paid. Now, I think they deserve to get paid, and that's a good thing. But since you opened it up and let it be so that there were no rules to payment, it's going to be really hard to kind of reel that line back in. It's going to be very hard to get that fish back in the net. So the revenue sharing and the House settlement, which there hasn't even been an agreement on that. Ross Dellinger reported a day or two ago that athletes are about to get paid out, athletes spanning approximately the past decade, are about to be paid out $1 billion in total, and there are no rules for this revenue sharing. So my questions that I have is how is this revenue sharing going to be enforced? How's the cap going to be enforced? And even if that's the case, and even if the cap is enforced, how are you going to stop certain NIL collectives from just adding the cap to their treasure chest, to their war chest? How are you going to stop that? Because that part, I think, is the dirtier secret and is the more important conversation. Texas's donors are going to have a lot more money at their disposal than Texas, the athletic department, will in terms of being able to spend on college football players alone. Texas has to spread that money out. They operate on a budget. The university does, and the athletic department gets a part of that. These donors can just donate to specific athletes to come to Texas if they want, and they can do it behind the scenes, meaning there won't be limitations, or the university won't really look bad if they do it. Well, if the university paid an athlete $10 million, that might put a little bit of a stain on them. Maybe I'm wrong there. But I just don't think this is going to be fixed anytime soon. And isn't cheating, I say cheating in quotes because tampering's no longer cheating, that's easier than ever. Paying players, tampering, stuff that used to be hard, or if you got caught there'd be actual punishments for, there's none of that anymore. So let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Having connection issues, very bad connection issues right now. I don't know why encoder is over. I'm actually going to text about this right now, but we're done for today. We've reached an hour, and I don't want to spend 20 minutes talking if during my Nebraska video this lag continues. So I'll see you guys very soon. Hopefully, next time we go live, we won't have these connection issues. I thought I fixed them, but evidently I have not. I'll see you guys very soon. Thanks, and have a great day.